Welcome to the Lawns and Life podcast, where DIYers go to get the tips and advice they need to have a great looking lawn. Well, hey there, lawn lovers. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the Lawns and Life podcast, where we dive deep into the world of DIY lawn care. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned veteran looking to polish your skills, we have got something for everyone. In each episode, I break down simple, easy to understand topics that will empower you to achieve your dream lawn. My name is Devin. I'm the DIY lawn coach, and thank you so much for coming back for another week. Man, I have another, I guess as the kids would call it, a banger of an episode for you guys. I was able to get another guest on the show. I'm just rocking and rolling over here, and it's just fantastic. I want to say thank you to Allyn Hane, the Lawncare nut, for coming on the podcast and spending some time with me. It was amazing. Just like Pete last week, if you missed that one, that was an amazing one too. And even Mr. Ferguson, way back to the very beginning. I'm so appreciative of these guys giving me their time and lending me, their expertise and their knowledge, because it sure does bring a lot of value to you guys, and that's ultimately what I'm trying to do. So I just want to let you guys know that there are a couple different ways that you can listen to this podcast. Many of you watch it on YouTube, which is great because I do end up recording it for the video. But I also wanted to let you know that the podcast can also be found on Spotify. And again, all of these are 100% free to you. They don't cost anything. I don't charge a subscription fee or anything like that. But Spotify, and even in YouTube Music, if you guys aren't listening to it on YouTube Music, it's another great way. What's really cool about those two is you can minimize them, put it in your pocket, and that way it doesn't mess with the playing of the video, I guess, because you've got it minimized. So Spotify, great way to listen. YouTube Music, great way. Those are audio only versions. But of course, most of you watch me on YouTube, which is fantastic. But just want to let you guys know that you can also listen to the podcast multiple ways. And again, YouTube, great way to see my smiling face. So thank you so much for coming back for another week. So as I told you guys, I was able to sit down and have a conversation with Allyn Hane, the lawn care nut from the Yard Mastery. And, he brings a very unique perspective to DIY lawn care. He used to work in the business for True Green, I believe it was. And, got a lot of professional education, on the job training, and now he pretty much does DIY full time, which is awesome. And so he really does bring a lot of value to the DIY community. It's exactly why he's so popular in the way he is. But we have a lot to learn from him. We sat down and we talked about IPM, or Integrated Pest Management, which is something that I believe in, and he'll kind of go into detail and give you his thoughts on that. And we talked about the Yard Mastery app, which I made a video not too long ago talking about the Yard Mastery app. So if you missed that, make sure you go check that out. But there's a lot of new things coming for the Yard Mastery app, apparently, which is exciting because I really enjoy the app. So it's cool to see that they're going to continue to invest in that. And, if the whole lawn thing doesn't work out for Allyn, he found out I was a chef, and he went to a really cool restaurant while he was up in Chicago, or up and around Chicago, Illinois, for Christmas. And you get to find out if Allyn were to be a chef, I guarantee you what kind of restaurant he would open. So make sure you make sure you watch for that. Again, had an amazing opportunity to sit down with Allyn. Thank you so much, Allyn, for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. But before I play that for you guys, we always have to do the mindful moment of the week. So let's get into that.
It can be hard to slow down and notice things in a busy world. Mindful moments is where we pause for a moment to reflect on the here and now. After all, life is happening now. We simply need to take time to notice. These small yet profound experiences remind us that life is not about the destination, but the journey we take to get there.
So you guys know we do these mindful moments every week, and kind of where the mindful moment kind of came from. It's kind of interesting, actually. There's a quote from a gentleman named Greg Anderson, And if you don't know who Greg Anderson is, which I didn't before I looked it up, so don't feel bad. But Greg Anderson is an author. He wrote, according to Wikipedia, he wrote 6 books. He is a cancer survivor and now is the CEO of a cancer recovery foundation. But I guess in one of his books, he wrote that to focus on the journey and not the destination, that joy is found not in finishing an activity, but in doing it. So that's Greg Anderson. Let me read that one more time. Focus on the journey, not the destination. Joy is found not in finishing an activity, but in doing it. You know, if you're new to lawn care, that saying is so true. And it's not just lawn care, it's life. You know, we talk about mindful moments. And as I sit here and I think about and reflect on, you know, life not necessarily being a destination. And then when it comes to lawn care, if you think that you're going to get a perfect lawn and you're just going to be able to shut it down and stop time, and that's not necessarily the case. Matter of fact, I know that's not the case. You know, every day that we get to spend out on the lawn, we get to have fun, you know, and I know in the heat of the moment when we've got a fungus and we've got issues going on the lawn or it's hot and whatever, you know, at the end of the day, those challenges that we have to overcome in lawn care, just enjoy it. It is the process. You know, they say enjoy the process, and this is the process. And life is the same way. You know, you know, my parents used to tell me, don't wish your life away. Well, that's exactly what I think Greg is saying. Joy is found not in finishing the activity, but in doing it. You know, I mean, to think that you're going to, you know, have a really nice lawn and that's going to be the end all be all. And I hate to tell you, that's not the way it works. So enjoy the mowing, enjoy the spraying, you know, that's why I created these mindful moments, is just for us to take a second, put our feet on the ground and just appreciate what we have and find joy in not finishing something. I mean, yes, we want to finish the activity that we're doing, but let's enjoy where we are and what we're doing and not be so focused on, you know, reaching the destination as opposed to just enjoying where we are. So I'm going to play the interview for you guys, and I hope you enjoy it. Again, thank you so much, Allyn, for coming on the podcast. Here is Allyn Hane, the Lawn Care Nut. All right, so I am so excited to welcome this week's guest to the podcast. He's somebody who has completely changed the game in DIY lawn care. He is a proud Floridian by way of Northwest Indiana. Many of you know him as Allyn, but we all call him the Lawn Care Nut. So Allyn, welcome to the podcast. How are you, bud?
Good. Thanks, Devin. Great to be here, man. Looking forward to it.
Happy New Year, too.
You too. Happy New Year.
Can you believe 2025? Like, I'm a kid. I was born in the 80s. And so when people talk about, like we were watching the movie Elf over Christmas break, and you know, that movie's 10 years old. I'm like,
I know.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's awesome.
So what have you been up to? Like what's going on in LCN world?
Well, you know, we're kicked off here in Florida. Actually, you know, we're in a cold spell like everybody else, but pretty much where I'm at, this part of Florida, we're year round. And so yeah, we're starting pre-emergence next week. Got app programs rolling out. So we're right off. Everybody else gets a little bit more of a break, you know, at least through February or so. But down here, we're rocking and rolling and getting things
So
moving.
will this cold snap affect you at all? Like, is it going
to? Probably not where I'm at. We've had I would say it's not been a mild winter, but it's been one where we haven't gotten any low temps that have done anything to the lawn. So my lawn literally stayed green, but I haven't had to mow it in over a month. So it's just a perfect year for that. People who didn't have a good nitrogen buildup, I want to say, or whose lawns weren't vigorous going into the cold spell, they're dormant. But anybody that had enough nitrogen in there that the lawn was able to grow through it and kept it irrigated, they're green. So fun stuff.
Yeah, it's so I was telling you before we got on, we're going to get 1 to 3 inches of snow here. I think it's currently 30 degrees. It's miserable. Do you miss the cold?
Not one bit. Actually, I was in Chicago, Northwest Indiana, over New Year's, seeing my sons, and I usually go on purpose now. When I go back to see them, I always go for 4th of July. That time, when it's nice and warm, and I still get cold even then. But this is the first time I've been back in a while during the Christmas holidays, and I did not miss the cold. But it wasn't so much the cold; it was the gray skies. And I don't think you have that in North Carolina, but
We don't.
Those skies get gray in the Midwest, and they stay that way all winter, and it's like living in a cave. So that's what really gets me, especially being a native Floridian. That's just
It is depressing. So my mother's family grew up in Michigan, the UP of Michigan, and I mean you can go months without seeing the sun, and it'll snow like just a little bit, like for a week, and it's not for me for sure.
For sure.
So I'm glad you brought up the trip to Northwest Indiana, because the first question I have for you is, I saw you got to go see Jake and his Christmas display. I thought that was incredible. Mm-hmm. But you have been in the Christmas lights game for a long time. You decorated even as long as I think you've been on YouTube. I think you've done. So where does that come from for you? Like, is that a childhood thing? Like, where does your affinity for Christmas lights come from?
That's a great question, because this is something I tease my dad with. So my dad, who is my best friend and my mentor, and he's almost 80 years old now, he was never a lawn guy and never a Christmas light guy. So growing up as a kid in Florida, we had a terrible lawn. It was just old bahia grass. I had to do that. I hope I didn't just blow out your ears. But it was old bahia grass, just thin. I remember one time he tried to plug it with St. Augustine. It failed. It was just bad. We had oak trees that shed leaves everywhere. It was just the worst case scenario for a lawn. And it was in St. Pete, Florida, which is an old city anyway. And so the lawns were old. And the long and the short of it is, my dad was not a lawn guy. He didn't do it. And he wasn't a Christmas light person. So every Christmas we'd have people down the road there putting up all their lights, and I always wanted to do that. My dad was like, no. We had tree and stuff inside, but never outside. So I guess what I'm saying is, it's all of the things I wanted to do as a kid. I wanted to have the most beautiful green lawn on the block, and I wanted us to have the best Christmas light display. Now that I own a house, or ever since I did own a house, I did that for myself. And my dad thinks it's funny now. So
that's cool. Yeah. So, and you don't get into the inflatables or anything like that. It's just strictly Christmas lights.
Clean, simple, classy. So you can put up as many as you want, but you just got to try to keep them logical. And, and again, I don't have anything against people that do inflatables. Everybody has a different style, which I think it's cool. I've seen people that do inflatables and they make it look like, they make it a scene where there's different things going on and they're I think that's really cool. I just don't have that creative vein. For me, it's just more about as many lights as I can get, as bright as I can get, but also keeping them, properly spaced and even. And, and now people have the Govee lights now, the automatics and all that run on apps. I think the LEDs, I think those are cool, but they don't look like the traditional lights. And so people ask me that too. Why don't you do the Govee lights or that, or jelly lights or whatever they call it, jellyfish? I'm like, man, no, I like that classic look because it's what I didn't have as a kid, So I still like that classic look, but I, just use updated stuff. So,
have you seen the Christmas lights display when they pair them with music? Have you some of those that are just?
That is awesome. I love watching videos like about that, people that show how to do it, because it's really cool. I don't quite have that type of a tech bug, but I totally get the people that do, and I understand why they do it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So. Also, while you were up there, and you don't know this about me, but I'm a chef. That's what I do for my 9 to 5. I went to culinary school, and
you did.
I've got a culinary degree. And you posted some pictures. I guess you went to a restaurant while you were there, and it absolutely intrigued me. So, if Allyn Hane were to ever be a chef, the restaurant that you would open would be a molecular gastronomy restaurant. So tell me about that restaurant that you went to, because it was fascinating.
Yeah. So my son is also, he graduated from culinary school also.
No way.
In Chicago. Yeah. And he graduated in the middle of COVID though. And so as soon as he got out, he was in the middle of that. And that he was like, nope, I'm out of this profession, done. And he's a firefighter paramedic now. So, but having that knowledge is never a bad thing. Never at all.
My wife loves it.
Exactly. And he does it at the firehouse. He does offset smoking, and all his friends come over. He does all these things. All right. So he has a love of restaurants, and him and his brother, my other son, they'll actually travel the world and go to restaurants. That's their thing. And they'll go to literally a country just for a restaurant. And a lot of those are ones they've seen maybe on Netflix specials, things like that. And so that restaurant, I can't remember the name of the chef, but he was on one of those Netflix shows, I think called Chef. And so that's where they were introduced to him. And because it's in Chicago, it's close. And so I asked him for Christmas, what do you guys want? And what my sons and I have decided is that we do for Christmas now is instead of buying them gifts or things, we go have an experience. And so and it's usually a restaurant now, something like that, one that may be out of their reach. And so they asked me for that one. So this one took a long time to get on. I think he had to check for 8 or 9 months to get it. And it just so happened to come up right around New Year's. So that was really fun. So it was a cool experience. Not what I expected, but better than I expected.
So for the viewer that doesn't know what molecular gastronomy is, it is the science behind cooking. So you take different techniques, searing, braising, stewing, bruleeing, things like that. And the chef uses those techniques in some of his dishes and some of the way that he presents the dishes. And you did a fantastic job documenting it, because it was really, really cool, especially the dessert. Dessert was probably my favorite thing when they were drizzling all the stuff all over the table. So it was cool.
And that was the thing. That's their thing they're famous for, is their helium-filled candy balloon. That's like one of their famous things. And then, that dry ice or whatever it is where they pop it across. But it's everything. It's more of that too. Like even the glassware that they have. So they serve you caviar. So they give you glassware that feels and looks like caviar. And then they go, your next dish is underneath, and you flip it over, and there's something that's been stuck inside of that and some gelatin, and you eat that. And then, but also throughout the whole time, they're pumping in music and different sounds. Yep. And even different scents into the air. So it's it's really interesting. And you come out full.
The Japanese call that umami, that sense of that fifth sense, if you will, of eating. It's smelling and feeling and touch and sound and crunching and all that good stuff. So like I said, if you were to ever go, I could totally see you, man. If the lawn thing doesn't work out for you, which I know it's doing really well, you could open up a molecular gastronomy restaurant. So
yeah, as long as I can use liquid nitrogen, I'm good to go.
That's right. There was probably some fire, which I know you love fires, so it's got all your stuff.
It all works.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, I just wanted to kind of dig in on that a little bit. So let's talk a little bit of lawn stuff, if you don't mind, because that's what we're here to do, right?
Right.
Tell me something that most DIYers get wrong. My channel is mostly focused on the newbie, the new guy, the guy that, is just kind of getting into lawn care. And, I preach a lot about the basics in lawn care, mowing, fertilizing, watering, so what are things that you see? You've got a wealth of knowledge. You've got a ton of experience. You see a lot of DIYers. So in your opinion, what do most DIYers get wrong about lawn care?
So it's hard for me to say most, because there's such a difference between people in the north and the south and things like that. But for sure, I think in general, people get wrong that they want to treat their grass. They have southern grass, they have warm season turf, and they try to treat it like it's cool season, or the opposite. They have cool season and they try to treat it warm. But typically what I see, because of where I live here in Florida, everybody moving down here from New York and New Jersey and everywhere else, they want to treat their lawn here like they did their lawn up north, and that's a recipe for failure.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Well, so for example, with cool season turf, you have a reset button every year called winter. Now, the reset button can be a little harder if you're in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, for example, or where I lived in Northwest Indiana, versus where you're at in Carolina. The reset button's not quite as hard, but it's still there. And when I say the reset button, what I mean is pretty much whatever mistakes you made in the previous year, the freeze takes care of them all. It's done. You might wake up with some thin spots or whatever, but those are easily cured with a little bit of seed and some fertilizer and some basic practices if you need it. Whereas southern turf doesn't really sleep. The soil never sleeps because our soil doesn't freeze. So when the soil never sleeps, that means things like disease never sleep, insects, there's always an insect threat, weeds are always coming in, even though your turf is dormant. And so you have to have winter strategies. You can't just take time off. Oh, it's cold now, I'm going to take time off. And then also just the way you mow, the way the fertilizing strategy is different, pretty much everything. They're just two different animals, even though they're both grass.
Yeah, and I guess you get a lot of those snowbirds that come down and they're used to taking care of a cool season lawn. And I know that you posted a video not too long ago where you have some large patch going on. And, for me, I'm shut down. I'm not going to, I don't even have to think about the lawn until maybe mid March when I kind of look at my pre-emergent. So I, to be honest, the lawn is the last thing on my mind right now, It's just surviving this cold right now.
Right. Yeah, we're still dealing with, that's the thing. You have to, like you say, we're dealing with disease and things like that. So you can't take time off, but you also have to realize sometimes you're going to live with it. And that's what I've had to learn here. In Florida, being that it is year round, especially the part I'm in here in kind of central Florida. This is called South Florida here, Tampa Bay area. I'm going to have some disease in the lawn pretty much most of the year. And so I just, okay, it is what it is. It looks fine. You got to realize that you see the lawn a lot closer than everyone else does. You see all the problems. They don't. And so, you got to kind of take a little stretch back. And I tell people, you're always going to have something you're living with. It's like being an older man. I'm always living with some pain somewhere, whether it's a knee or an ankle or whatever it is. At my age, I'm always living with a little pain somewhere, right? That's kind of how the lawns are down here in Florida where they don't go to sleep. There's always a little something going on.
And that really leads me into the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, and that's integrated pest management, right? So I know that's something that's really important to you. It's really a strategy that anyone in lawn care really needs to adopt. And I think that's kind of what you're saying about living with things. Like, we don't have to always want to throw something. And that's really what I think is maybe a misnomer with DIY, is we just want to fix it. Whatever that is, we feel like we have to do something about it. So how do you balance that?
Yeah. Well, let me give a definition of integrated pest management, just in case there's people listening that may not know. So, and this is what I was taught when I was at True Green, and this is what I've always tried to follow. So what integrated pest management, or IPM, says is you're only going to use the hard control. So the IDE, the insecticide for insects, the herbicide to kill weeds, or the fungicide for fungus, the IDE, right? IDE means to kill, right? So you're only going to use the IDE when it gets to a point that the problem is starting to affect the overall use or beauty of your primary crop. Our primary crop is turf grass, right? So I said that in an all big way, but you just say, I'm going to live with some disease until it gets to the point where I can't stand the way the lawn is looking anymore, or I'm actually starting to lose parts of the lawn, or things are starting to die off completely. If I get to that point, then I'll use the hard control. But it also means if over time I have a history of learning, I've taken time and I've taken notes about my lawn and I've learned my land, and I know that I have a particular disease problem, for example, large patch, it's going to hit my lawn every single year. Well, in that case, integrated pest management would say, then I'm going to use a preventative fungicide ahead of time, knowing that I'm going to have this problem every year because it's just the environment I live in. It's not my fault. So I'm going to use a preventative, which is typically going to be a little lower application rate, and you're going to get on it early, so you'll use less overall because you're not trying to cure. That's also integrated pest management. So basically what you're trying to do is use as little amount of IDEs, or chemical. I don't like the word chemical. You'll use as little amount of IDEs as possible to still keep your turf stand looking good. And one of the things that people make a mistake with is they lump fertilizer into all that. And I don't. Think about, I'll take it back. I like to compare a lot of things that we do in lawn care to the human body. And you'll understand this too because of the way the stomach works. Everything you do, man, if you put two of the wrong courses in front of somebody and you jack their stomach up, you ruin their whole dinner. Well, that's because that's called a biome, and you have to serve that the right way. And the biome in your stomach is very similar to the biome in the soil. And it's a system, and it works in a certain way. Well, what happens is people always want to turn to the pharmaceutical. We're going back to the human body stuff. They want to turn to the pharmaceutical first. Oh, I have disease problems? Okay, I'll throw the chemical down. The pharmaceutical, the fungicide. Oh, I think I have brown spots. It's probably insects or fungicide, so I'll go get 2 pharmaceuticals. I'll throw down any insecticide and any fungicide. I'll just throw those things up. Why do you reach for the pharmaceuticals first? Why not reach for the NPK? Why not reach for the vitamins and the minerals, right? And the things that are going to support your body. That's, like we say cure things with food. Well, lawns make their own food through photosynthesis, but if I give it nitrogen and it creates more leaf tissue to grab more sunlight to create more photosynthesis. You see what I'm saying? So I think that's where some misconception comes in too with that. I'm kind of going off the track, but don't always reach for the pharmaceutical cure first. Try to cure things with the basics, good watering, mowing, proper practice, call those cultural practices, and also feed the lawn. The last thing you want to do when your lawn is stressed is stop giving it nutrients. People tend to do that. So,
yep. Kind of going along with that is probably focusing on the soil health. I think for me personally, I think so many people focus more. I always make the comparison of your lawn being like an iceberg, and the only thing that you see is the tip of the iceberg. And a question that I was going to ask you that we'll go ahead and address now is, I always, whenever I make a video on RGS or Humic 12, the keyboard warriors always come out and tell me that I'm wasting my time, I'm wasting my money. But I look at my lawn and I visually see the benefits of what I'm doing, but they tell me I'm wasting my time. So am I wasting my time with Humic 12 and RGS or no?
No. So the biostimulants work, and I know they work because I've seen it too. I probably see more lawns than anyone else in the United States. I would be honest with you because of just the application or the different groups I'm in, my app. I can see a lot of things, right? So that's one thing. But the second thing is, you can see when you put down Humic 12 on a lawn that's not been touched, you'll get a color response. Well, what's it doing? It's chelating nutrients that are naturally in the soil. That's what that does. That's a biostimulant. It's pretty simple. Sea kelp is another one that's in RGS. Sea kelp has been used for years in gardening and in lawn care and a lot of places. I've done demonstrations where I do pots with RGS in it that has the sea kelp, and you can see you get more roots. So it's pretty simple stuff. The liquid aeration, again, it's not liquid core aeration. We don't call it that. It's liquid aeration, right? If I take this bottle right here and I shake it up, am I aerating the water?
Yes, you're incorporating air.
No, that's right. So that's what aerate does. It's potassium hydroxide. It breaks bonds in the soil. This is why we tell you to have some soil moisture available or soil moisture there. So when you put that potassium hydroxide in there, it breaks those bonds and it creates air, which creates space, which allows roots to go down. So it's pretty logical things. Again, do people have to use them? No, I never used them and had great green lawns. But what I do see is that my lawn responds better. It looks better and healthier overall, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think we live in a world where we want to just have instant gratification. And I think when it comes to RGS and Humic, I've been applying them in my lawn for 3.5 years. And it takes time, I think. And I don't think people give it enough time before they make the assumption that it doesn't work. Cause I think you say this in your videos, it's not a fertilizer. Like you're not going to put it down. You will get some color response, but you're not going to put it down and instantly see it's not nitrogen, right?
Yeah, that's why we always say it's to be applied in incorporation with a fertilizer program. So the idea is, yes, it'll chelate nutrients out of the soil, the Humic 12 will, but you're also putting more fertilizer down. So that's the idea, is we're going to try to maximize what fertilizer is going down. That's the whole idea. That's why they work in conjunction with a fertilizer program. It's supposed to enhance the fertilization that you're doing. Like a lot of people that have a True Green, they'll get the biostimulants and apply the biostimulants on top of True Green. It's a great way to do it, and that's a great way to start, actually. I tell people to do that a lot. We've actually seen there's a lot of our customers, that's what they're doing. They're people that have like a True Green or a professional service who's limited with the nitrogen they can put down just because of money and cost and things like that, and whatever they're doing. So these guys will throw down extra stuff on top, more biostimulants or more nitrogen on top just to get a little extra. And that's how they kind of get into it. That's how they kind of dip their toe in the water. So fun stuff.
So you mentioned cost. I think of you as somebody who's on the cutting edge. You're talking to these manufacturers, you're talking to vendors. You have a line of fertilizers. So as a DIYer, we have all seen costs go crazy the last 3 or 4 years. So in your opinion, what's the outlook? Are we going to get some relief? Like what's the outlook?
Prices go up very easily, but I've never had a vendor come to me and go, Allyn, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take your pricing down to 2019 levels because urea finally went back down to whatever, $600 a ton. So,
Yep.
you know, those are things that are well out of my control. Those are commodities and things like that. And so I would love to see the prices come down. I mean, gas prices go up and down. You know, again, this gets out of my realm. The way the world works with investment and trade and all that's way over my head. I don't think that way. So I'm more of a victim of those things. So, yeah, I don't know if we're going to get relief or not. I wish we would.
So do you have any tips for saving money? Like how do you, I mean, so what are some strategies for, I mean, if prices aren't going to come down, what are some things that we can do to try to save some money where, you know, if we're on a budget?
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody's budget's a little bit different. So, you know, I like to put down applications every 4 to 5 weeks. That's my strategy. That's what I like to do. I like to think of it like a bodybuilding position. We're trying to, build up, we're trying to bulk up, but not everybody has to do that. You could do applications in spring and fall only. You know, you don't have to. I think people think in extremes too much. It's like either I'm going to do all or I'm going to do nothing. Well, it's okay with lawn care to do a little bit. You know, it's just like working out. You know, doing cardio 2 days a week is better than doing no cardio at all. You know, so treating your lawn in the spring and the fall is better than nothing. And actually, I think most people do it that way. I can see the way sales work. I mean, it's a seasonal business anyway, spring and fall, but people are busy in the summer. So there's nothing wrong with that. So I say always start out, do a little bit, do what you can, see the results you get. And again, as you learn your land over time, things get better. Especially, I'll tell you, I don't want to get out of Florida too much because Florida's so year round. There's so much going on. It's very expensive here in general. But, you know, up north, a cool season lawn, you can actually get a cool season lawn dialed down to the point where it doesn't need hardly anything. You know, if you have a really bad crabgrass problem and you keep your pre-emergent down for say 3 years in a row, and then any breakthroughs you kill them, you won't have a crabgrass problem again, unless you get a really crazy year of like a super bad drought or a super rainy year. Then some seeds will wake up from the depths. But for the most part, in a cool seed, you can eliminate crabgrass completely, 99% within 3 years. Dandelions, which are the main weeds you face up north, you can eliminate those within a couple years too, and have a couple stragglers. And then from there, it comes down to fertilization, and you can get away with 2 pounds of nitrogen a year. Again, it's just about getting the lawn to a certain point. It's a lot easier with a cool season lawn to do that. And the other thing you can do with cool season lawns, obviously, is thicken them up with seed pretty easy. So I would say budget-wise that way, it's easier. Warm season lawns, you know, little tougher, you know, little longer growing season, little more needs in the turf.
Yeah. For me, when it comes, I very rarely deal with weeds at all. The biggest cost that I have in my lawn is water, and it's fungicides. So we, you know, here in Western North Carolina, we get extremely hot. We get extremely humid. I don't deal
Fescue
with,
just eats it. Yeah.
yeah, I don't deal much I have no weeds really. I mean, I get clover every once in a while. But it's mainly fungus and watering. Occasionally you'll have a pest like an armyworm, you know, outbreak or something like that. But you know, it's like everybody wants to tackle the weeds and focus on the weeds. But to me, the weeds are like the easy part. You know, if you get your pre-emergence down and you got a thick, healthy stand of turf, the weeds kind of take care of themselves. For me, it's the fungus. Just, you know,
It depends.
And I have
to
an
where you
irrigation
live.
system.
Well, that
Go ahead.
helps for sure. Well, just with the weeds, it just depends like what your neighbors do around you, how big the lots are in your subdivision, how old the subdivision is. All those things will be a factor for weeds. How many people have lawn services and don't, because things spread around that way. You'll notice we had bad hurricanes last year. You're going to have a nasty weed problem this year, probably worse than you've ever had, just because the hurricanes bring in all kinds of stuff that you don't expect. So those are all things that contribute.
So I was mentioning I have an irrigation system, and everybody's like, "Oh, you're so lucky to have an irrigation system." But I'll be honest, you really can. You got to be careful with an irrigation system because the tendency there is to overwater or overdo it because it's so easy. I mean, I got this app on my phone. I can water at any time, and most of my clients that I do in my lawn coaching don't water right. They have irrigation systems and they run them like. It's so funny. They run them like every day for 10 minutes, and it's just
that's been going on since forever. I don't know who ever did that. I had when I worked for True Green in Chicago, same thing. 100% of the time, I go into somebody's garage and it's 10 minutes every day per zone. I don't get
Where
it.
did that come from? Like,
I have no idea.
it's crazy.
The other thing with the sprinkler system, though, irrigation, you could get complacent. This happens to me because I'll run them at 4 or 5 a.m., right? So I don't really see them going off, but I get up and I'm like, why is my front door wet? and I don't, maybe I don't notice that for 3 weeks. Well, I got a head that's off, so that's what I have a problem with mine is I get complacent just expecting it's doing it and I don't monitor it like I should.
And also what bugs the snot out of me is when you see them running and when it's raining, or it just rained and like we got 2 inches of rain last night and I'm driving to the gym and I see an irrigation system running. I'm like, this is crazy. But, it's, I guess, like you're saying, it's out of sight, out of mind. People, the set it and forget it. I just, that's when it comes to DIYers, right? It's the basics. It's the watering, it's the mowing, it's the fertilizing. It like we make it so much harder than it has to be. But if you can focus on those 3 things and just do those right, it takes care of 90% of your problems.
It does. Yep. Sure does.
So kind of switching gears here a little bit. It's an honor to have you on the podcast. First of all, I told you I started my channel less than a year ago. I had not in my wildest dreams would I've ever thought I would get you on a podcast, or I would even have a podcast first of all, and then have you on it. So, tell me, you travel a lot, you see a lot of people. So tell me about a time that you were kind of starstruck, or have you ever been starstruck before?
Starstruck. Yeah, I have been. When I was in the Air Force and I was stationed at March Air Force Base in Riverside, California. It was actually in Moreno Valley, but Riverside, it's realigned now. I think it's still a reserve base. But anyway, I was stationed there. It was 1995, and Chris Evert, who is a famous female tennis player, and at that time she was probably number 4 or 5 in the world. I worked in public affairs, and so what the public affairs office did was, at least the enlisted part was, we did base tours, we ran the base newspaper, and then we did media relations. That was kind of our 3 jobs. And so base tours, Chris Everett calls and wants a tour, they're going to give her a tour. And so I got to follow along. I didn't give the tour, somebody else in my office did, but I got to take pictures for the newspaper and see her. She came to tour because her son, who was, he's probably 30 years old now, but he was like 5 or 6. I guess he was interested in airplanes and stuff, and she was near some tournament or something, so she asked if she could come and tour the base, so we did that. So yeah, I was
you must follow tennis. I mean, if you know that name, how do you know that name?
I don't follow anymore, but yeah, when I was younger, I played tennis in high school and stuff, and a little bit when I got out, I played a little bit in the Air Force just for fun. So yeah, she was up there. Yeah, her and Martina Navratilova, they were the 2 that battle back and forth.
Have you ever played pickleball?
I haven't. Everybody plays it here. It's a cult down here, and it looks fun, and I mean that in a good way. But it's one of those things that I know I'd have to commit to, and I don't have the bandwidth to add that. Same reason I don't play video games, because I know what I would do, and so I can't put it in.
You could totally play pickleball. It's a lot of fun, man. My wife and I started playing this summer, and it's a lot of fun. Especially you were talking about the aches and the pains and the different pains. It's a good sport for that.
Get stretched out.
Yeah. So how do you relax? You're always seem so busy. You'll post some, usually Friday nights you go to that concert venue and you relax there. So, but how do you relax? What do you?
Well, I like going to concerts. That's like my thing. So, in fact, when I get home, I'm going to actually start lining up my 2025 concert list. But I like to do that. I like to tailgate. That's fun. And so that takes place at the beach. So I like to take my dog out to the beach. I like to relax that way. And, Florida has some pretty cool botanical gardens and places like that, like Bach Tower Gardens or the Marie Selby Gardens, botanical gardens in Sarasota. I love going to places like that and, getting up there and just chilling out and looking at
And you
beautiful
have
nature.
and I don't mean to offend you if I say this, but you have a very eclectic music taste, would you say?
Sure.
So where does that come from? Where is that
So
your dad again, or is that
no, well, I grew up. I wasn't allowed to listen to rock music until I was maybe like in the 5th or 6th grade. So I'd sneak it before that, but it wasn't until I was a little that 5th, 6th grade that I was. And then, back then we had cassette tapes, and so
a what?
yeah, exactly.
I'm just kidding.
No, that's all right. So we didn't know, how do I say it? If you weren't somebody that was really into music, I didn't know the names of bands or people in the bands. I didn't know the words to the songs. So, half the time I sing songs from the 80s, I say the wrong words. So music was always just something I'd listen to, but it was more about a place I would be. So reggae's real big. I grew up in St. Pete. So, you go downtown Janus Landing areas like that, and there's reggae playing. So I just go in and I listen to it. I'm like, this is really cool. So to me, music was never about who's popular or because I didn't know those things. It was just what I like to listen to. Well, that's great for me now because the way the world works is I still don't know any band names or anything. I just put on like Google Music and I'll find a song I like. So I like Stick Figure. So I know that's a modern kind of reggae jammy band. And I'll just put on radio. And then they'll put up all these other related songs, and that's how I discover things. And so I don't know, I guess that's the way. I just like to discover different music for different things I'm doing or different moods, workouts versus at the beach versus, that kind of thing.
Because in your videos, I mean, some of the music's just like, I mean, it's kind of cool, but it's like, where in the world did he find that?
Well, I do the 80s style. I always try to find music in my videos that sounds 80s or synthwave, that kind of stuff. So, I like to partake a little bit. So sometimes the synthwave kind of, it matches the mood.
We call that vibing now.
Yeah,
that's
vibing.
what the kids call that.
What is it called? Not freak mode, but flow state. Flow
Right.
state.
There
Yeah,
you
gotta
go.
get into the flow state.
All right. Well, that's cool. Well, Allyn, we have a new game here on the podcast called This or That. And it's just a little fun, lighthearted. It's an opportunity for the listener to kind of get to know you a little bit better through some quick rapid fire questions. Are you down for playing This or That?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's go.
Welcome to a little game we call This or That, a segment where guests answer rapid fire questions quickly so we get to know you a little better. Answer quickly and try not to think too much. Just answer this or that.
All right. Now I'm gonna take it easy on you in the beginning, and we'll dial it up a little bit. So,
All right.
The first question is New Balance or Nike Monarchs?
Oh, New Balance, not a question.
Okay. The Bears or Packers?
The Bears.
Give it to me in your Northwest Indiana accent.
Hey, I like the Bear sofa bite area. You know what I'm
There
saying?
we go. There we go. Push mow or ride on?
Oh, definitely walk. Yeah, I like to walk for sure.
Gas or electric? Ego's not listening, by the way.
Yeah. I like them both.
It's not a trick question.
Yeah. I mean, I like gas and I like battery.
I do.
I know. It is what it is.
All right. Okay. Craft beer or import?
So I don't do either one anymore. I'm a Busch Light guy.
Really?
My liver, my system
Okay.
can't handle anything anymore. So
Okay. All right.
5 Busch Lights and I'm good for the
So
evening.
domestic. That's what we're going to call it. There we
Mass
go.
produced.
There we go. Chris Stapleton or Van Halen?
Oh, Chris Stapleton.
I love Chris Stapleton.
Yeah.
Love him. A day on the water or a day in the lawn?
Whew. Day on the water, got to beat it. Sorry. Just does.
What kind of fishing do you do down there? Do you do offshore or what kind of fishing do you do down there?
Yeah, we call it inshore or flats fishing. So it's like bass fishing, except it's saltwater, but you're in 3-4 feet of water, sometimes skinnier than that, sometimes 1 or 2 feet. Redfish love that. So we go after snook and redfish. Those are redfish are my favorite. Snook and redfish are always around here. So that's the main thing.
And do you cook it when you get home?
No, I don't do that. I throw them back usually.
Okay.
But, yeah, and I don't.
Okay.
I'll just tell you, I'm not some great fisherman. What I am is I met a charter captain years ago who has become my good friend, And so I did the math on it, and it's a lot cheaper to pay him to go out 5 or 6 times a year and catch a bunch of fish. Yeah. And then when it's and drink all the beer I want, and when it's over, I can leave the boat without cleaning it. That's a lot cheaper than buying a boat.
That's my philosophy on a pool. I have friends with pools rather than Devin buying a pool. So that's smart. The 4 or 5 times I'm going to swim, I'm going to go to a friend's house.
Yeah, so my pool is an expensive water feature. I wish I could go in it more. You know what happens, though? Every time I go in the pool, all I can do is look around my house and see all the things I'm not doing. Like, that needs to be done. You know what I mean? So I can't enjoy the pool.
Absolutely.
But I'm glad other people do. So
yeah. Okay. And the last question for the this and that is liquids or granulars?
I prefer granular because I can pack in more nitrogen in a single app.
Granulars. Okay. I'm more of a liquid guy. I really enjoy spraying. That's just that's something that I enjoy doing.
I do too.
And I've got, you do too. You got tall turf, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to push that spreader through the tall turf, and mine's not flat.
It's like a sled, You ever push a sled when you go to those D1 training kind of places or that kind of circuit training, and you got to push the sleds? That's kind of what pushing the spreader is. It just gets lighter at the end.
That's it's definitely a workout. But if you're smart and you kind of plan your route appropriately, as you're coming, you fill it up and then you go down the hill and you turn, and then maybe it's halfway through before you have to go back up the hill or whatever, so you just got to be smart about it,
Yeah, you got to learn your lane. That's right. Speaking of that, you talked to a lot of beginners, right? I'm sure you meet so many of them, and I know we're doing this or that, but sorry, I just wanted to get this out because I'm like you. I have a passion for brand new people. Like, I want them to understand what we do. Like, it's so much fun to control your destiny of your lawn. It's a lot like a bodybuilder who will do different things to build their body in a certain way. Some guys are all legs, some guys got giant delts, some guys have big, whatever it is. It's the same with your lawn, to learn how to flex it. But people are scared. They just have this fear about making an application. It's like, nah, man, just get out there. You can do it. You're not going to hurt anything. You're not going to burn it. And if you do, it'll be okay. It'll come back, so.
I was one of those people. I mean, was especially when you start talking about, fancy words like azoxystrobin and propiconazole, and those are really fun to say, but they're pretty scary when you're not familiar with them, or you think you're going to hurt something. And it does it. I think it starts off with nitrogen. You feel like you're going to burn your lawn, and everybody, you're going to do it, and you're going to learn from it, and everything's going to be okay. And you'll never make that mistake again.
And then you get your pattern, like what you were talking about. Thanks for bringing me back. You reeled it back in. What's that thing Trump does? The walk around or whatever he talks about.
That's right.
Talks. But yeah, so you learn that pattern, you learn your land, and you realize that it was hard the first time, maybe the second time, but after, you're like literally a professional after your third time. And now you know your exact pattern every time. You make a perfect app every time. To me, that's good. That's proficiency, and that's the confidence to keep going. So you got that, and that's learning your land. I think that's the most important thing. Learn your land.
Yeah, and you only get that with time. You can't, you go back to being afraid. I do a segment on my podcast too every week, and it's called Mindful Moments, and it's just my podcast airs every Sunday at 7, and it's a weekly podcast. I actually started it because I got nothing to do. I got nothing going on in the lawn because it's freaking cold outside. And so I thought, well, I'll come in here where it's nice and warm and I can, still make content and talk about lawn. So I thought it'd be fun. But part of that, the mindful moment, I did a segment on just being afraid and not being afraid. And especially going into 2025, if you're thinking about getting into lawn care, don't be afraid. You've made the comparison when it comes to lawn care. You screw it up, it's just grass. Like, it's gonna come. You especially with a cool season lawn, if you really screw it up, you get another chance in the fall to redo it all anyway. So don't be afraid. So do you talk about that for a second to help me relay that message of not being afraid to try something or get into lawn care?
Mm-hmm. What it is what Specail was saying. You learn quick. It seems It seems difficult, but it's not once you get into it. But I know what it is. You know, when you buy your house, you think back to, and I meet people all the time. I actually had a guy stop me out here the other day, and he goes, I'm closing on my house in 30 days. First thing I'm doing is putting an application down on my lawn. I can't wait. And I know that feeling. When I was younger and I lived in an apartment, I would watch TV shows like on DIY Network or whatever, or Bob Vila. And man, when I get a house, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do my own wainscoting. I'm going to do my own tile work. I'm going to do my own backsplash. And I learned how to do all those things. And there's not a lot of fear there because they're all things that are already dead. And so you can always just buy another piece of drywall, and everybody knows that, and it's easy. But with the lawn, because it's alive, that's a whole nother deal you got to figure out. It's actually a whole different approach. You can't manhandle it like you can, labor jobs like that. So you have to look at it in a different way. And that's where the fear is, because people realize I can't just recover that by replacing it with drywall. So I think that's where the fear comes in. But like you said, the thing is, it is resilient. It will come back. And the other thing is, everybody else around you, their lawn probably looks terrible too. So just go for it, You're going to be fine. Pick something easy, pick something approachable. Or like I said, if you have a lawn service, just supplement what they're doing. Just get out there a little bit and let them do the weed control and that stuff you don't want to do, but you put the fertilizer down, the easy stuff. Go get some Milorganite. Whether, whatever people feel about Milorganite these days, I still love the stuff. It's the most approachable fertilizer out there. You will not hurt anything with it, so use that. Use that as your training wheels. It's perfect.
Yep. I don't, when I first started taking care of my lawn, I was just worried that, like I said, I was gonna hurt something. I was gonna burn the lawn. I was gonna screw something up. And I'm like you, I'm not just a DIYer out in the lawn. I'm a DIYer inside my home as well. And I have my limitations. I know when it comes to plumbing, I don't do plumbing. I'll do electrical, I'll do all that stuff. But when it comes to plumbing, I just don't trust myself. I don't really know why. But the cool thing about plumbing outside is that if I screw it up, right, it's outside my house and my wife doesn't even know, right? So,
well, it's okay if it leaks anyway, because it's going where it needs to be.
That's right. So, I think if someone is afraid, I think just like you said, trying Milorganite is a great way to do it. Or like you said, mixing in, letting your lawn service. You don't have to take the burden on all at once. Maybe let your mowing service keep mowing and you say, I'll take over the fertilizing, or you keep doing the applications and let me mow, whatever hybrid program you have. But there's just something about lawn care. There's something so rewarding about it. I'm like you, I just want other people to experience what I experience when I get done and I got crispy edges and lines, and it's just, man, I love this business, and I know you do too.
Well, yeah, and then you're out back, and you're on your grill, and you got to have the right backdrop. So I have to ask you a question, because I got a trained chef on the line. I got to get some information here. So,
okay,
if you're cooking outdoors, are you smoking? Are you direct on charcoal? Are you a gas grill man? What's your choice?
So let me kind of anytime. Let me give you a tip when it comes to cooking any sort of protein, whether it's chicken, steak, ribs, whatever. The best thing that you can do before you put anything on a grill is let it come to room temperature. So when you pull a steak out of the refrigerator and you're going to cook it, let it sit on the counter for an hour. Even chicken, pork chops, whatever it is.
Yeah, people are scared of that.
Yeah, but think about it. You've got your refrigerator's 40 degrees. You're putting a 40-degree piece of meat on a 500-degree grill, and the goal is to get that meat evenly cooked all the way through without burning the outside, without the middle being raw. So, my advice to anyone, no matter what you're cooking outside, try leaving it on the counter, let it sit for an hour, and let it come to room temperature. But for me, I'm a Weber grill charcoal. I don't do gas. I love Weber charcoal. Even when I do ribs on the charcoal grill, I do what's called a snake method. And if you've never heard of the snake method, basically you just line the bowl of your Weber grill with 4 or 5 briquettes of charcoal, and it takes roughly 4 hours, which is exactly how long you want to smoke ribs, to burn from one end of that snake all the way around to the other side. And the charcoal just kind of self-lights itself as it snakes around. And you just, grab a beverage, watch the thermometer, keep it at 200, 225 degrees, and away you go. So really you're just managing the thermostat, if you will. So
snake method. All right, cool.
But whether you're, anytime you're cooking something, even, a turkey at Thanksgiving, if you're doing turkey at Thanksgiving, leave it on the counter an hour before and leave it on the counter an hour after it comes off. One of the worst things that you could do to any piece of meat when it's hot is cut it, because you're opening up all those, all those cells inside that meat are bound up really tight. And when you cut it, it releases all those juices. Well, that's your flavor. That's your moisture. And that's what you don't want. You don't want that in your cutting board. You want that in the meat going into your mouth for sure.
So that's a lot of pre-planning and a lot of patience, which I think most people that are cooking outside like me don't do. So that's extremely good advice. So let me ask, if you're going to do red meat, let's say steaks, let's say you're doing prime rib, what's your temperature that you like?
I'm a medium rare type guy. So 230, 235, somewhere around in there.
Okay.
And then I like to, once I cut the prime rib, I then like to sear it on the outside, just because anytime you sear something that it's called the Maillard reaction. That the browning of meat is called the Maillard reaction.
The bark, you mean?
Well, just the browning of meat. So, or
general. Okay.
I mean, if you're smoking, right, you're doing barbecue, or that is, I guess it would be considered but that's more the fat caramelizing on the outside. Okay. But the browning of the meat's called the Maillard reaction. But that's flavor. And so anytime you can incorporate that into the piece of meat, it's going to benefit you. It's going to taste good.
All right. One last one. So
okay.
Any meat that you can do, you can go to any grocery store, exotic grocery store, whatever you want to really impress. What's the meat you're going to do?
I'm a lamb guy. I love some lamb chops, some roasted lamb chops, and some roasted, but I'm a big roasting guy. I like that technique. I like high heat. It just develops a lot of flavor, but I'm a big lamb chop guy. Do you like lamb?
I do. Yeah. Lamb shank and lamb chops.
Yeah. I love lamb and roasted potatoes, and I'm a big Brussels sprouts guy. I love roasted Brussels sprouts. The only guy, I can't have them in my house. So anytime we go out to eat, because my wife can't stand the smell of them. So we go out to eat, I always get Brussels sprouts because she cannot stand the smell of them. Matter of fact, I just did a podcast not a couple of days ago with Pete with GCI Turf, and I don't know if you know, but he has this weird thing where he doesn't like his food to touch. Yes. He made a post on Instagram over Thanksgiving of like he wouldn't let his food touch, and as a chef, I was like, oh, it just makes me cringe because
we want it all together.
Yeah, and I'm like, he's a Southern boy, and like who doesn't like biscuits and gravy, or country fried steak and gravy? Like, I don't know, that's just weird to me. Do you like do you let your food touch, I guess?
Oh yeah. Well, I had a friend that when I was younger that was a chef that taught me. He's like, look, stuff's on the plate for a reason. You should try it all out. It's like charcuterie. So I look at that. When I go to a nicer restaurant, I look at things like charcuterie. Like I want to try to mix stuff together where I think it won't taste good, but it always does. And that's what to me is the fun,
A lot of what's in food is pairing salty and savory, crunchy and creamy. Like if you take like a charcuterie board and you take, maybe a salty cracker with a creamy blue cheese or a creamy goat cheese, and then you put some kind of compote on top of it, like a raspberry compote or something. Yeah. So you're mixing, and poor Pete, I mean, he's never going to be able to experience that, unfortunately. Poor guy.
He'll get there one day.
Yeah.
What kind of restaurant do you work in now?
I actually work. So I'm a corporate chef now. Okay. So like your son, the restaurant business is incredibly hard. I got out of the riffraff, I guess, a couple of years ago. It's a grind. I mean, it's a hard job. You're working every night, every weekend, every holiday, and it's a labor of love. But I very quickly realized that I didn't want to be in the back of the house forever, and so I kind of got into sales I got into food sales for a little while, but what I really enjoy is the corporate chefing, where you still get to, you work for a manufacturer of food and you're their chef. And so you still get to use, but it's more the glamorous type of, way to still be a chef and wear your chef whites and all that good stuff. So
I love that. So that's the friend I mentioned that was a chef that taught that's what he was. He is still a corp. His name is Joe Arvin, and he was on Big Brother. And he always wanted to be a famous chef, and we used to do sizzle reels for him. This is way back before I ever did Lawncare Nut, when I was just learning video. And he had a restaurant called Smash Mouth Burgers and Pizza in Schererville, Indiana. And we used to film like mystery boxes and stuff and do videos, like crazy stuff. Anyway, yeah. So, but he was a corporate chef. He sold everything from ranges and equipment to food to. He had a bus at one time, had his face on it. Yep. So that's cool. I respect that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's I think everyone should have to be a waiter in a restaurant to be able to. If you want to be able to eat in a restaurant, you should have to wait a table just to understand what those people go through. It's it would change the way you tip at a restaurant. I promise you that
For
much.
sure.
Just
Yeah.
and it's a tough job, and it's hot in a kitchen, and there's a lot of addiction to inside restaurants that you just don't know about. People, drugs and alcohol, and it's a late
Anthony
night.
Bourdain. Yeah.
It's tough. And I love Anthony Bourdain. He's a great writer. I loved his book. I mean, it was incredible. So, but it's when you're young and you're want to be a chef, you think. And when I was in high school and wanted to be a chef, Emeril Lagasse was the cream of the crop. Bam. That's right.
Yeah.
And
Love that guy.
And he glorified being a chef, and I thought that was the only path for being a chef, and there's so much more out there. And I've still got a lot of friends that are in the business, and a lot of them aren't even married, don't have kids, and they're a slave to the restaurant, and that's great. And that's that's just not for me. I'm a family man. I my wife, my kids. It's hard to balance all of that.
Sure.
Yeah.
The hours are nuts because you got to be there on every holiday, Mother's Day, stuff like that. You got to be in the restaurant, so you miss.
So when I graduated from culinary school, I started out working at country clubs, and it's I learned a lot. But your 4th of July, you're cooking chicken tenders and serving cocktail shrimp to somebody who is off for that day, and you got to work. And so we used to do. It's called Rock Barn. It's a country club here. We used to do the Greater Hickory Classic every year, which was a senior PGA tour event. And so that was really cool to get to see some of the senior PGA. Do you play golf at all?
Not anything serious.
Yeah. So it's just, it was really cool. It was a lot of work, but that's a young man's game, as you would say. It's a young man's game. Yeah.
For sure.
So what's next for you, man? Like talk to me about 2025. Like what's on your radar? What's coming? What's moving, what's shaking for you this year?
Yeah. The biggest thing is I've got some new grass I'm working with. So, it's always fun for the guys up north, you guys with cool season lawn, you get to work with the new seed, right? This is the new Intep this, or the new Rhizotomus that, or all those things, right? And so I like to do that here, but it's different because we don't seed. But there's a new St. Augustine grass that's out called Viridian, and it's a Scott's product. So I've worked with their
put
Pro
that
Vista.
down. Yep.
Yeah, I've worked with their Pro Vista for years, and it's great. I still love it. Well, now this is just another iteration of that. It's similar in that it's got all the same attributes. It's glyphosate tolerant, which to me is the best thing. And we have a Kentucky bluegrass seed that's also Pro Vista that's glyphosate tolerant. But then it's glyphosate tolerant, it's deeper, darker blue-green color, and it's a slower growth. So those are kind of the attributes to it. The newer one now, the Viridian, has all those attributes plus cold tolerance. So that's why it's good for North Florida, and even over into Texas, things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
I got that in my lawn, just resodded. It's been 4 weeks now, so that'll be fun to work with that this year. So that's coming up. Other than that, I'm going to play around with, going to release some natural products this year, natural-based products.
Okay.
We've had quite a few people ask for that. And it's fun because turning a lawn green with a natural-based product is a lot different than just using urea, which just, is easy. So a little bit different formulation, putting some different biostimulants in there.
That's exciting.
Things like that. Yeah, that's fun. That's going to be a lot of fun. And I like that because now there's no iron in there, so no staining. So, you still get the nice color you want, because that's one of the challenges you have with using chelated iron. You get stains, so none of that will come in. That's something, and then, that's kind of the main things. Our app's getting redone. We redo the app every year.
I just made a video on your app, actually, just kind of talking about, do I use it? Do I recommend it? And I love it. I think it's a game changer for DIYers. I mean,
thanks.
Again, nothing, and I say this in the video, nothing about the app is transformational. What you've done for us is you've brought everything in that we need, and it just makes it really easy. I think my favorite part of it is just the journal, because it's with me all the time. I love that feature, and I think it's a great thing. So for you to continue to expand that for us DIYers is welcome. I mentioned in the open how you've changed the game for DIYers. And that's true. You really have. You've brought, not only with your content, just bringing, not making people feel fearful of making applications, but also, being able to have fertilizer choices and some of the things that we've never really had access to. That's awesome. So, you probably don't know this either, but my lawn is turf type tall fescue, and I use Pete's Spreader Elite, which is a rhizonomous tall fescue. And I love that turf. I love the fact that it has some spreading capabilities. And you talk about your grass and all grass, hopefully I'm not saying this wrong, but all grass is genetically modified, right? I mean, it's not indigenous, right? It's all been genetically modified, right? So
or selected.
Is that a trend you're seeing with some of the growers? I mean, to try to, modify the turf to be more pleasing and easy to work with. Is that what you're seeing?
So I don't know too much about breeding, but I think most of the grass seed, I think it's more just from selection. In other words, so I don't think the term is natural selection, but where growers just see something in a field and that's different, and they pluck it out, and then they grow more of it, and they see if the trait continues on, and if it does, they'll select it, right, and try to reproduce. I think, and again, this is not my field, but I think that's how most, especially cool season turf grass, is done. I think the only GMO is what Scott's is doing, because they actually have this gene gun that like injects and stuff. I've seen it. So yeah, I think it's more like tulips and stuff like that, and flowers, where they're all natural, they're all selected for traits. Right. Yeah. Well, did that answer the question?
Well, yeah. I'm thinking, those. You talk about barrier to entry, right? That if a turf is, much more forgiving, for someone who's wanting, I don't have to mow it as often, or it doesn't require as much water, or it stays greener longer, or whatever. I mean, those are attributes that maybe someone who isn't taking care of who doesn't like to take care of their lawn because they have to mow all the time. Well, if I only have to mow twice a week, I'm much more apt to take care of my lawn if that's the case. So I was just curious if you're seeing that as a trend.
So that's where, I would like to make it a trend, because we sell the Scott's Pro Vista Kentucky bluegrass seed, which does grow slower. But yes, so that has been genetically modified that way. But I don't know if anybody's selected. I think most people out there that are looking at growers of cool season turf, they're looking for, like you're saying, traditional things, deeper color, obviously. They're looking for disease resistance, insect resistance, things like that. And then they'll release those into certain parts of the country where it'll benefit. Mm-hmm. And I think it's always been that way. I just think they're better at it now. And there's more choice, because of the internet, we have choice now. You can get these NTEP scores and things like that. And there are people that are crazy enough to want these really outlandish and cool things. And they set trends. Listen, I'll tell you to this day, when I was learning lawn care at True Green Chem Lawn, and I started there in 1998 and worked there for 15 years, perennial ryegrass was looked at as junk. People would say the only reason you put perennial ryegrass in a mix is to give the customer something to see, because the Kentucky bluegrass takes so long to germinate, and then let it die off. That was really what they would say. It was junk, garbage. Then Ryan Knorr comes along and goes, no. Let me show you how much what I can do with perennial ryegrass, and I can cut it at a 1/2 inch and look at how it shines like a new, all these things. And now all of a sudden everybody wants perennial ryegrass. That's a YouTuber that did that. Yep. I love that. You know, so I think the trends are coming from us. I really do. I think, and not just me and Ryan, but anybody online. There's guys on Instagram now that are just huge amounts of followers. I think that's really where all the trends are coming from, is we're influencers,
I think
we're doing that. Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. And then anytime we're making it easier for the DIYer, and these manufacturers are responding and making it easier for us, then it's a win-win, right? Because they're filling that need. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Allyn, I really appreciate you coming on today. It's been awesome. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it, and
I did.
You're off to go get something to eat, hopefully. Just
grab a couple 2-tree beers over there, get some wings at the old wing house.
There you go. All right. Well, enjoy your meal, and thank you so much for your time, and thank you for coming on the Lawns and Life podcast with me.
Thanks, Devin. Appreciate it, brother.
All right, y'all. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Allyn. It was amazing. It was fantastic. Again, a special thank you to Allyn. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. If you are not subscribed to Allyn, not sure what you're waiting on. I think most of you probably already are. But if you're watching me on YouTube, again, I will leave the links to Allyn's Facebook page. I'm sorry, Allyn's YouTube page. Of course, Allyn has a Facebook page too, so I'll probably leave that too. He's on Instagram. Of course, the guy's everywhere, but I'll leave all of that down below so you guys, if you aren't subscribed, can go check him out. And I'll also leave a website. I'll leave a link to the website, The Yard Mastery, where I like to use a lot of his products. And again, I've mentioned this in the past. The reason why I recommend those products is because I believe in them. I know they work. And I know they're going to deliver the results that you're looking for. So hope you guys have a wonderful week. And I can't wait to see you guys in the next one. My name is Devin. I'm the DIY Lawn Coach. Peace.